Welcome to Healed, Whole, Called, the podcast where stories of trauma meet the healing power of Jesus. Each week, we journey with women who have walked through pain, wrestled through the process, and now stand in the promise of who God called them to be. This is more than storytelling. This is sacred space, where honesty is welcome, healing is possible, and hope is alive. And now, here's your host, Wendy Melrose.
Today, I am honored to share and welcome, well, not share time with, but welcome Michelle Steiner, writer, speaker, disability advocate, and the heart behind Michelle's mission. Michelle is a powerful voice for inclusion and understanding, especially for those navigating with learning disabilities. Her journey with dysclasia, did I say it right?
And dyscalculia, that's okay.
Dyscalculia. Sorry. I knew I was going to mess it up. And other challenges could have caused her to give up, but instead she uses her experiences as a launch pad to help others. So today she shares stories that break down barriers to build up hope, speaks at schools and organizations and online platforms to promote awareness, education, and empathy. So Michelle is living proof that learning disability is not a limit. It's a different lens through which God still writes a beautiful story. So Michelle, thank you for being with us today and for living out your mission with such grace and boldness.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of share with us at the beginning about, what was it that the hardship that God walked you through? So tell us more about what that learning disability is. I've never heard of it.
No, that's okay. It's dyscalculia, which is a math learning disability. And I struggle with numbers and how they work. I also have visual perception issues, but it's in my brain, not in my eyes. And I have limited hand dexterity as well. So I'm not able to drive. Okay. But they figured out whenever I was in kindergarten that I had a learning disability. I was really struggling in the classroom. I was struggling with anything math related, handwriting, tying my shoes. And my teacher really saw this and she recommended that I get tested for having a learning disability. And sure enough, I have one. And they didn't give the exact names like dyscalculia, but they knew I was not going to be a mathematician at that age. And school was really a struggle for me for all of those years. I can just remember really struggling in there. I was just having such a hard time socially and academically. And I wondered, well, what good could ever come out of having this disability? And I thought the only way that I'm ever going to be complete is if I get cured. And that's not how it happened. God had a lot of other plans, though, for me. And it wasn't just only for my good, but it was for the good for a lot of other people.
That's awesome.
Yes. And I can remember what we were, those years I had to repeat kindergarten in a different school. I began to receive specialty instruction in all areas. And I also had accommodations of extended test time and having the test read aloud to me. But still, school was a real struggle, just trying to do a lot of that. And one of the things and God was always in my life. I was raised Catholic. I was so grateful for the seeds my parents planted in me with that to be able to know God. But I really didn't have that much relationship. I did accept Christ. My parents were open to other denominations. I went to a vacation Bible school and I was very young. I was about 3 or 4, but I accepted that. But I didn't really have that transformation until later in my life. And I can just remember, though, eventually things started to get easier academically. I was put into more regular ed classes for reading, science, and social studies. And I got into those classes, but I had the accommodations of having the test read aloud to me and having extended test time. And things were going really good for me. But I really for me academically, by the time I was in high school, I was in all regular ed classes except for math and a resource room. But socially, it got a lot harder for me. I was being bullied, and I was just really struggling a lot with my life. But God had a plan for all this. I realized that a lot of the people that I was going to school with weren't really going to be my people or my friends. And I found a faith-based art group just outside of our school district. And I found other teenagers that shared the same interest that I did. And I also found that there was other people that really also had disabilities once I did disclose that, because I could shed that reputation that being an outcast had followed me. And then I can remember too, I started to see God though as this loving father. I didn't see that before. I knew it was a bunch of rules, and there was a lot of fear and a lot of guilt, and God was just really working and starting to work in my life. And after I transitioned out of that group, I also found another group of some adults that were involved with a writing group. And they got to see me grow as a writer and a person. And 30 some years later, we're still in each other's lives. And we meet once a month to talk about our writing and just other things. And they encouraged me to write about my life with having a learning disability. And I just was not ready to do that. I wrote some really bad poetry and some other things I would not want to read today. And we also struggled with what I was going to do after high school, college. But I wasn't alone in my fears I knew it was going to be a struggle. And I also had other people who doubted me. I had a learning support teacher who said, I don't think you can go to college because of your math. And she recommended that I go to a trade school when I was in high school. And I just didn't really interest me, didn't have anything with that. Decided I was going to go to college. And I had a psychiatrist who told me, based on my scores, I would most likely not go beyond community college. And I get to community college, and there's even more stigma that's surrounding that. I had people that thought disability accommodations were cheating. I had other people, I had an advisor who told me I was going to have limited job choices. I had other people who thought that you may not find someone that's going to love you because you have a disability. So that was really tough for me. But I was I was able to graduate with an associate's degree in early childhood education. And I moved out on my own. I started attending a Methodist church at that time, and I started to just really enjoy having my independence. I'm not able to drive because of my disability. So I'd like being on my own, but I always wanted more for myself, and I still struggle with my purpose. I can remember I went to a baptism and they were talking about how God has a purpose for everybody's life. And I thought, well, where is my purpose? Who am I going to be? What kind of job am I going to have? What kind of life am I going to do? And I wanted more for myself. And I can remember when I finally, be careful what you wish for, because it just might come true. I had to move back in with my parents for financial reasons for a while. And that during those years, that's when I also struggled too, because I'm wondering, well, where really is my life going? My job is downsizing. I'm back home with mom and dad. And it was that time that I just felt God telling me to go back to school. And I found a program that had the least amount of math and science possible and had disability accommodations. And I even had a ride there. My mom was at church, and she was at a church event, and somebody was asking about me. She goes, oh, Michelle's going back to school. And here my cousin worked right on campus and was willing to meet me and pick me up. And that just was like, okay, this is a God thing. This is time to go back to school. But everything was telling me it was time to go back. And I found a lot of, it was a lot easier. I used the accommodations they offered on campus. I advocated for myself. I had a note taker. I had extended test time. I had tutoring when I needed it. And when I advocated for myself, I found that most of my professors understood me. And it was a much easier experience. My grades improved dramatically. I was also able to make Dean's List for a semester, and I graduated with a bachelor's degree despite being told I couldn't do it.
That's amazing.
Thank
So
you.
what was it that you finally graduated with?
Community programming for Americans with disabilities. They call it a transition specialist now, but I was able to do that.
That's really amazing. So obviously that was a major turning point in your life.
It really was, because I didn't think that I could do it before. And I had other people that were like, well, did you pray about it? Is this why you moved back into your house? And I remember feeling really frustrated. And I did pray about it. God had other plans for me. And I got to see those plans turn out for the better.
Right.
Not working gave me the time to study. And I was able to financially graduate debt free because I had the money that came in from the state, and also money that came in from OVR, which if you have a disability, they can pay for you to go back to school. And it was a real a win with that. And I had so much confidence after that. I thought, I want to really go out and I want to help people. And it took me a while to really find, even after school, to find the right job. I worked for a few places that said they were disability friendly, and they were anything but that. And I really struggled with that. And I also met my husband during that time, and we were at that point, we met and we were just getting more serious with that. And eventually I found a job working in a school as a paraeducator. And I've been there with them for 15 years, and I can just see God really working when I work with my students. I can help them with anything except for math. I'm pretty open about that. I will tell them I can help you with anything except for math. And sometimes it's like hearing a recording of myself at that age. I hate my disability. I wish I didn't have an IEP. And I get that opportunity to tell them that it's not a bad thing to have a disability. And it's not going to be the end of what you can do. And I show them how to advocate. And all my students, I pray, this is my prayer, they're all going to graduate and they're going to leave me, and every single one of their dreams is going to come true. But for so many of them, their disability is going to be there. And I want to give them the strategies to be able to be successful with that.
That is so amazing.
So
I want to hear,
yes.
I'm super excited about all of that. And I had a question that I think it left my brain. Okay, I do. I had SPAC. One of the things, one of my, the other people I interviewed the other day had said, our purpose is typically found in the pain we endured as children.
Yes.
And that's exactly in your situation. It's in mine as well. And it's beautiful. And that's something I believe that, you can even share with the young pupils that you help. It's like, yeah, I mean, I get it. When you're young, you're like, whatever, Michelle. But the thing is if when we plant seeds of hope and encouragement and help them to know that even though they're dealing with a disability or even struggling as a young child, they still have purpose and dreams. Yep. And so they may not go play football for the Kansas City Chiefs. They may not go and be a mathematician. They might not become a successful author. But the thing is that their gift is specific to them. And the thing is that you have learned clearly that your disability might not make you a Nobel Prize mathematician.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you don't have Nobel Prize potential in a different category.
Exactly. And there's so many people that think, oh, you could do it if you really wanted to learn math, or it's all in your head. And I'm thinking, God just didn't design me to do this, but He designed me to do other things in my life.
Right.
And I find when I focus on the things I like to do and I'm good at, I feel so much more empowered with doing that.
Yes. It's almost like, and when the thing is, and that's kind of one of my big problems with the education system, is everybody gets put through the same hole. And it's just not what it needs to be. I get that we need to be able to function with reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Right.
But when there's a clear disability in one of those three categories, we now live in the age of AI.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to have it to be successful. You need to know how to get the answer, regardless of how you do it.
Right. You need to know how to get the answer and how to work around that, because that's something that I have to do with my everyday life, is find ways to work around things.
Now, I would love to know how you do your writing. Do you do voice text? What is the easiest way for you to write with your disability?
I do a lot of typing, but I also, surprisingly, even though my handwriting is not that great, I do sometimes things in my journal and jot down ideas. But if I want other people to be able to read it and understand what I want to say, I have to type it, and that's
Okay.
fine with me. In fact, that's kind of my preferred method because I can be able to do spell check, grammar check. I do sometimes the voiceover for other things, but I really try to do that speech to text because excuse me, the typing, because that's when I can also copy and paste and put it in Hemingway editor. It's an app and it'll just show like, oh, where maybe I have some grammar mistakes at too. So I think that's easier. And it's easier for my husband to be able to edit it too.
That's amazing. Yeah. One of the things several of the authors that I work with in my business, they're dyslexic. And so I told them, I'm like, don't worry about typing. Don't worry about handwriting. Now we are in the age of transcription.
Right.
You can talk completely fine. Nothing comes out of order when it comes out of your mouth. So take your ideas, your dreams, your visions, however you want your book to be, and transcribe and just voice memo it and transcribe it. And it's like, I love the world we live in right now. It literally is going to be what about this prophetic world? The rise of the amazing disability humans.
Right. And there's so many opportunities. I've had kids that I've worked with that have used the voiceover, and I'd have to just encourage them. It's okay to use that. And I've even had to talk to staff that just don't get it. And delicately, I've had to tell them, I would tell the kids, I would say, all right, I understand you're struggling in class here to get this information down. We're going to, as long as it's not math, we're going to go and work on this later on today. We have a date to work on this thing. And I've had students that have come up to me and we would sit down and work it out together using voiceover.
How did it work for them?
Wonderful. They got their homework done. The assignment was turned in, and when I talked to the teacher about it, he goes, yeah, I guess I probably should have let him use that. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, if we could just get everybody to just calm down on the natural progression of how everything is supposed to be.
Right, exactly. Right. And sometimes there's that communication too. Barely.
Sure.
I mean, people don't always understand that. And sometimes I think it's just that we have to work with the student. And I tell them, I'm like, I know it's like the struggle, but we have to come together at some point to get that. And sometimes if I can't help them, I can point them in the resources of somebody who can.
That's amazing. So what recommendations or what ideas do you have for parents out there who might be listening and they know that their kids are struggling? And let's just pretend they live in a school district that doesn't get it, or they may not have the resources to be able to help them. What ideas and recommendations do you have?
Well, one of the first things that a parent can do is definitely, though, to call and talk to the teacher and try to get some kind of communication on what's going on in the classroom. Even if the teacher doesn't quite get it, at least asking and being on top of, well, what is the work they're turning in? What is their grade? And talk to the kid. What are they struggling with in the class to figure that out? That's the first thing. And I also think it's taking the book aside at night and doing their homework and sitting down with the child. My parents and I, we spent many tearful homework sessions. It was frustrating sometimes, but my mom and dad made me try. That was the main thing in life. I had to try. I didn't always have to be perfect at it, but we had to try. And they advocated for me within the school, but they still made me go to school, even when I didn't want to. They made me go take the test, even when I wasn't going to do well. And they knew it, and I knew it. They made me go when I had problems with my peers. And I think that's the key thing, too, is to figure that out and also figure out what works. What is your child good at? My dad knew that I liked to read and write. And he's the one that he would read me a story every night. And he saw a story I wrote about a dinosaur when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade. And he said, wow, this is really good. And that was just, all that encouragement is just what I needed. And it just became my own world where I started to read and I started to write. And that was my interest. It was never about, well, you got to be good at sports, or you better be good at handwriting, or you better be good at math. It was just, what are you good at? What do you like? And then we can build upon that.
That's brilliant. So I see what God is doing in your life and when it comes to the schools and all that kind of stuff. Do you serve outside of the schools at all? I'm super curious. I know that I've seen that it says that you're speaking and stuff like that. I'd love to know a little bit more about that. Like, how are you helping the community?
I belong to a disability group that is secular, but we do a lot, like we'll have meetings where people get to do presentations, and I get that chance to kind of go and to be able to do that. And I think that's such a blessing too, to see other people and to be able to encourage them and hear their interest as well, and also to hear mine. I also do the prayer at our church. I'll send out cards and pray for people that might be sick or might just need some encouragement. I enjoy doing that. I also have a book club that is run by a friend that has a disability. And it's nice to kind of go to book club and hear what some of the different books are. And I go out and I get the chance to speak at a lot of different places. And I also like to write too. I think that's another really big way that I get to serve. I have a blog called Michelle's Mission where I write about my life with a learning disability. And I really try to write from the heart, and I write what my struggles are, but I use it doing a lot of nature analogies. And I often find that other people will tell me, well, that's my story, or I struggle with that too. And wherever I'm at, I want to be able to just help somebody else out that has a disability, and to give them the resources and the support that I would have loved to have a long time ago, and also the support that I've been blessed to have.
That's amazing. Well, as we finish up here, you get two choices. Do you want to speak a word of encouragement over the audience, or would you prefer to pray over them?
I think I would like to speak a word of encouragement.
All right. I would love that.
My word of encouragement is that God has a plan and a purpose for everybody's life. Even with a disability, God has a purpose for that. He's taken a lot of my pain and a lot of the things that has happened to me and has really turned it into for my good. And he can do the same for you. All you have to do is just ask and wait for him to reveal that.
That's so amazing. So thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing your heart with us today. And to our listeners, remember, your story isn't over. You are not disqualified by what you've been through. With Jesus Christ, you are healed, whole, and called. Thanks again.
Thank you for joining us on Healed, Whole, Called. If this episode spoke to your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe and share it with someone who needs to know that healing is possible, purpose is real, and God is still restoring. And before you go, visit resilience-press.com and download your free copy of Get to the Point of Self-Publishing, Wendy's guide to help you move from stuck to published with clarity and confidence. You'll find it in the free resources section. Until next time, stay rooted in truth, covered in grace, and always moving toward the promise.